Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Tackle Shop Live.
A sunny day, right there you took my breath away. Young and pretty, was it just a dream?
What's up, Scott Lockoff?
The next day,
Larry Shope's in the house.
You told me I'm your little buttercup.
Holy mackerel!
You came over and you fell into my arms.
Sam and Sammer's here.
Well, I know what I feel.
Chris
Please
Bettinger.
tell me your love is real.
What is up? Michael Bradley, Mike Hayer, David Schottelmeyer. How's everybody doing? Man, oh man. Jason Stutzman, Dave Richardson. What up? Conway Hayden, yeah. Man, oh man. Place is filling up good. Mike Barr's in the house. Warren Guttrell. Jerry Otto, what's up, Jerry? Gary, what's up? Andy Garrett's in the house. What's up, Andy? Man, we got a great bunch of guys stopping in here. Glad to see everybody stopping in and checking out another edition of Tackle Shop Live. I'm not here alone. George is running around here. He'll be up here in just a minute. But man, we got the Jerkbait show tonight. How exciting is that? Love the jerkbaits. Love throwing the jerkbaits. We're going to talk hard jerkbaits. We're going to talk soft jerkbaits. I hope you guys are in for a really cool jerkbait show. We're going to talk about equipment that we use for jerkbaiting, forward-facing stuff like that, and how to kind of work with that. So there's a lot of jerkbait talk coming up. Of course, we're going to have a little tournament talk session, and also we're going to be talking a little bit of tackle talk, as always, because we are Tackle Shop Live. Here's George. I'm Mike Acord. This is George Acord. Nick Wink is had family things to do tonight. He couldn't make it, so cameraman Nick is not here. He is having to do some family stuff so we can go fishing on Sunday.
Oh, I like
Saturday.
That. I like that.
So
plan.
we were like, oh, what are we going to say about that? We can't say nothing. So that's what's going on here. Couple announcements real quick. Don't forget, April 21st is when we start signing up for SummerSlam Tournament 2023. Big event for us. That starts sign up April 21st. So that's a Jackal, G Loomis, Power Pro, and Shimano. Yeah, I knew I forgot something.
Really?
And Shimano sign up. $250 per boat is your entry fee of those products. And it is a special event. Everybody's a winner because you get your products at the end of the tournament. You get to keep your stuff you're fishing with. So I tell you, anybody who hasn't done this is a great opportunity. If you're new to tournament fishing, or you just don't want to go to the bay and fish against guys that you think you're going to take all your money. I'm telling you, we've had newbies down there that ended up close to winning already. So there's different guys every year that win. We've had great turnouts from guys who are brand new to tournament fishing. They told me straight up that they loved it. They loved it. They got their equipment. They didn't feel like they were donating, and they just loved the whole atmosphere. It's very exciting. We get over 100 boats in that tournament. So go ahead and on April 21st, and just keep posted to our Facebook and our Instagram and our TikTok, and just keep an eye on that stuff, because that's where we're going to announce the opening of the buy-in. This weekend, if you want to fish a tournament, you can go down to the Upper Bay and fish the Susquehanna Flats Team Trail Tournament, run by Brian Setlock, one of our pro staffers. Him and his partner are running a nice event. They run the Conowingo series. You know, you've heard me and George talk about it. We fished a couple of them. They're running a series down on the Upper Bay early, which is an early series. I think there's 4 or 5 terms. You can see them right down here. So they're right here. You can see some of the dates. You can go to their Facebook page. You can check them out. You can sign up at the boat ramp at 4:30 in the morning. Starting at 4:30 in the morning, down at Anchor Marine. They're going out at Anchor in the Northeast. So if you want to fish a tournament Saturday before Easter, There you go. Check them out. They run a great tournament. Okay.
Not only that, the fishing is
Starting to heat up.
it's primo.
Starting to heat up really good right now. So
The hogs are chewing.
the big ones are starting to bite, and that's early bite is pretty cool. And it's kind of frustrating, but it's really cool at the same time. There's big fish down there to be had. I think last weekend's tournament was a 22-pound bag. It won it. Yeah, go down there and check it out. I was fishing Sunday. I went to the La Juniata on the up off the Susquehanna River, tributary to the Susquehanna River. George and I went up there, fished some new water. Had a great time up there, kind of checking out some. You know how it is when you go to a new body of water, and you really don't know what's going on, and you're just kind of experimenting and kind of exploring. It's kind of always new. You know, that newness of a new body of water. It's a lot of fun. So it was a section I never fished before. We ran all the way up there, fished around. George and I caught some nice fish. It was tough. Cold front came through, of course, on Saturday night, and we struggled a little bit, but had a jerkbait working, had a chatterbait working, and had I think a little bit of a tube bite as we were going down through there. A lot of short strikes. I think the shallow water that we were fishing, along with the cold front that came through, had them just kind of snapping at it. You heard that today on Major League Fishing. I was watching the weigh-in for the Toyota Series down on Lake Dardanelle, and they were talking about the cold front came through last night, and they had a lot of bites, but they were missing a lot of fish. They were losing a lot of fish. Well, that's the same thing that happened to us. We had a lot of hits, a lot of really good solid hits on a tube or a Ned rig, and just there was nothing there. You set the hook and there was nothing there. They'd pop it. They didn't really want it. They were just kind of hitting it out of reaction and didn't really want to eat it because I think because number one, the shallow water, and number two, the cold that affected that shallow water. Once we got in a little deeper water, we started catching some fish, and I think the bite was a little bit better on that. So that was our weekend. That was fun. It was a good time. Got a chance to get out. Yeah, they're chewing on Lake Murray. David Schottlemeyer. We're going to get into that here in just a second. Okay. So we are going to start off with some tournament talk as always. And here we go. Well, today we were watching Lake Murray on our TV here. With we were streaming it on right in the shop here, and it was really cool because those guys were sight fishing. They were catching a bunch of fish, and they were catching some nice fish. So that was really exciting fishing, and they caught big fish. They were catching some big ones, but they had a moment where they had to they should have had a beeper and a bleep, a beeper for beeping out some crazy talk from Watson. Did you see that?
I did not.
Oh yeah, he missed a fish, a big fish, and he sat down, kind of washed himself, sat down, re-rigged, got back up, fished around, went over to this other little spot, threw out there another big one he had hooked on for a second. Big one came off, and then several F-bombs came out.
I applaud that.
I was like, whoa! There was kids.
I like to let them rip.
There was kids in here. We were trying to beep it out. We were hollering.
Well, yeah, I don't approve of that around the.
Well, I'm just saying.
Audience, but,
I mean, I wonder if he's going to catch any hell for that.
That process has already passed. That conversation's already been held.
So he already caught hell for that.
Well, I mean, where's my chart? Should I get my chart?
No.
I got a great chart for this.
We don't need your chart. I didn't really understand your chart. I was just kind of being nice to you. I didn't really quite understand it.
You're going to see it.
Hold on.
Stand by.
I didn't get it either.
Stand by.
I really didn't get it, and I really don't want you to embarrass yourselves in front of so many people. But apparently, you're not going to listen to the word I'm saying, and you'll just kind of embarrass yourself here. But anyway, man, that was funny. He threw out there, and he set the hook on a fish. And he lost it, and he was grumbling under his breath. But the second one he lost, he didn't grumble under his breath. He was dropping the F-bombs. And I think there was even an MFer in there.
All right.
which was crazy.
I'm going to sketch this out real quick for you. This is what Watson has faced. Well, let me go over here and get on the camera.
Are they going to be able to hear you? Other way. Okay, and then now up a little bit. Right down a fuzz hair. Right there.
All right, so tell everybody to kind of put this in their mind here.
Okay, hold on. I don't understand what's going on with this thing.
Is it focused?
What's that?
Are we focused?
Yeah. So you got that right, guys? Trying to get rid of this thing here.
Well, with the lack of cameraman Nick here. So at the bottom there, you saw clearly the fuck around continuum. So we're going to take F from 0 to 7. And we're going to put him in at about a 7. We're going to come up. On the left side of our chart is the find outside. And that's going to go from a 0 to a 7. And we're going to come back to the camera.
Okay, up a little bit. Okay, right there. Up a little teeny bit. So you got to find out. And
Well, no, first of all, down here is what Watson did.
this is what Watson did down the bottom.
He came in at a 7 on the fucking
And
round.
he came in a 7 on that. And then up at the top,
That's the find out graph.
that's to find out.
7.
A 7.
And you'll see you're much better off.
So what was the introductory point? What's that called?
So the higher that point, the more overall negative trouble occurs. So on the fuck around and find out bar graph, you want to be much lower. You want to be down in the 0-1 range.
0-1.
0 to 1.
Yeah.
You don't want to be up there in that 7.
Yeah, Scott. Yeah, you don't want to be in a 7. 0 to 1.
So that's
what happened with him.
That's what happened to Watson today. He went high on both, and then what happens when you come out there and then the discussion gets out here.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. It was crazy. I was shocked when he said it, and then he said it like 3 or 4 times right in a row, and then he was grumbling under his thing, and you heard what he said. I mean, he was just saying it over and over and over. Said it like 6 or 7 times. It was unbelievable.
Occasionally we have to chart that stuff out here at the shop. So we actually have one that's on a whiteboard because we have to erase it a lot.
Mm.
You get a situation. Mm-hmm. Watson got himself in one of those today. And you know what? He's going to be fine. I mean,
so what's the turnout here on these on this stuff?
The turnout?
Yeah, how did everything turn out?
Well, the Bass Pro tournament today was knockout.
Yeah.
So we took and cut the field to 10.
10 on each.
No, 10.
Oh, so that's just 10.
10.
I thought they had 2, Group A, Group B.
Yeah, Group A
had 5
qualifying.
I think you're wrong. I think it was Group A 10 and Group B 10.
No, you're wrong.
Oh, well, how come they said 10 were moving through today?
10. Tomorrow's championship.
So today was a mixture of Group A and B today?
Today's called the knockout round. So Group A's top 20.
Oh, okay.
Group B's top 20 after 2 days of qualifying.
I can't figure it out.
We know that. We've heard that.
It's ridiculous.
You should put that on one of your recordings there.
Oh, yeah.
And then knockout round.
They could do that.
Today, right? 40 anglers.
Yeah.
Cut to 10.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, now, the cool thing that they're doing this year is 5 fish weight.
Yeah. And keeping the weight.
5 fish.
Yeah.
And the other cool thing is keeping the weight. Cumulative weight from today and tomorrow. So,
yeah.
And if you look at those weights, it's anybody's game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's anybody's game.
There's a couple of guys that are catching them pretty good. And that's good that they have those weights, and that's good that they can keep that, because you caught them really good day one and all tournament long, and then knockout round you're in there and you catch it, you catch them good, and then they go to zero. I hated that.
Oh yeah,
I hated that. I think the fishermen hated that too, because then somebody could just get lucky and get on them for it didn't really show who was the best guy at the tournament.
it happens.
Yeah,
it happens. So what's cool is that there is a big time bait fish. So you got blueback herrings spawning.
Yeah.
And you got threadfin shads spawning.
Yeah.
And like you saw this morning, you can pull up on your first spot in the morning and land on an active group of fish on this spawn and catch 20 pounds of fish in an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
But
that was cool watching that.
Well,
fish
yeah,
blowing up everywhere.
And the conditions were not good for that this morning. You need a little bit of wind and a little bit of overcast.
I really like that Sabir Magic Swimmer for that.
Yeah.
A lot of guys were throwing that Sabir Magic Swimmer. And I saw somebody throwing a super fluke too.
Most guys were throwing a fluke.
Yeah.
The Sabir Magic Swimmer. They rotate through like 20 baits.
Yeah.
Because they're
a lot of spinnerbait guys too.
Yeah, I didn't see the spinnerbait, but I'll tell you, I can see it working. Rattle trap. But so tomorrow a front's coming through, and tomorrow, you're going to have some cloud cover, a little bit of wind, and I think that morning blueback herring bite could be like off the chart. And that is a shallow bite. They're up on those really skinny clay points.
Yeah, it's amazing how shallow it is.
Well, it's interesting because neither one of us have ever fished that lake, but we fish cur. And on cur, it's threadfin shad, and they spawn on the red clay points. And back in the old days, the way I would figure it out, which points to fish the next day, is I'd throw a spinnerbait up on all these red clay points, right? And if I wound it back real fast and a bunch of shad followed it in, that was where I was going to fish the next morning.
Yeah.
So, the spinnerbait was finding the bait fish, not necessarily the bass.
Yeah.
Now, admittedly, I didn't have a freaking clue what I was doing. I just recognized the fact that these nothing-looking red clay, not even primary points, just secondary flat red clay points, just nothing looking, had a little wind on them.
Yeah.
I recognized that I'd catch some bass there, but if I saw a bunch of them big shad and they were like that, following my spinnerbait in, if I was there the next morning, and I was a big fan of the Sammy under those circumstances, I was getting me some hot and heavy action. And if I had a little bit of wind, that Sammy just got devoured. That was a long time ago. I haven't been back to cur in many years, but I related to it from that perspective. So tomorrow we're going to watch for the
final round of that.
Well, we're going to watch for that. We're going to watch for that herring spawn to play bigger role.
Yeah.
Because some of the other stuff that's going on, as you said, sight fishing.
Oh, they sight fished the hell out of that lake in the afternoon.
Which is more of an afternoon thing.
That's big time afternoon.
And
they said there was a lot of fish that they bit. Some of the real bigger fish that they were catching were already post spawn.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. And
the Cajun baby, Cliff Crochet, he's crushing them on a whopper plopper. The 110 whopper plopper on super shallow banks with little shade pockets.
I don't know about you.
I mean, absolutely crushing them on that plopper.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't think I definitely don't throw enough top water during the spawn. I just definitely don't throw enough of it. I don't throw enough frogs. I just don't throw enough top water. I gotta get that in my mix a lot more this year. I gotta have that stuff rolling, big time, because I really opened my eyes to how many guys are throwing top water, even pre-spawn, when the fish are shallow. but really during the spawn, a lot of topwater stuff.
Frog is great for that because you can
Slow it real slow, and
you can skip it up underneath those cut banks.
yeah.
And that little tiny shade line, and walk it back out of there real nice.
Yeah, it's amazing how many guys were throwing that.
Skips good.
And I saw in Dardanelle today on the Toyota series down there, the guy that came in, I think he was 5th. He threw a frog the whole entire tournament, never stopped throwing a frog.
Yeah,
whole entire tournament.
Yeah, there's a guy that
Black Spro frog.
There's a guy that made a pretty good living for himself throwing a frog every day of his life.
Yeah, I know, but I just didn't expect it for the spawn as much, like that. And don't forget that guy also made a good career throwing the fighting frog, flipping.
Oh yeah,
during the spawn.
Yeah, well,
and pre-spawn.
The frog, and we talked about this a few weeks ago. We talked about some pre-spawn tactics, and we specifically talked about the frog.
I know, I've been knowing. I know about it. I got to throw it more. And that's all I'm saying. I'm bringing it up to our audience here. Listen, we got to throw this thing more. We got to throw this topwater more. We got to have that rolling in our mix of arsenal when you're fishing, spawning fish, and they're spawning. You got to mix some of that stuff in, especially first thing in the morning before the pressure gets on them. You can pop some really good ones, man.
You have to have an exact set of circumstances.
Yeah.
And when you have that,
it works.
That top water is legit, and the frog is a great option.
Yeah.
The wake bait.
Yeah.
You're seeing a lot of wake bait. Ott Defoe, man, he has showed what the wake bait will do. And he's throwing a big minnow style wake bait.
Yeah.
And just slow retrieving it and causing it to wake.
Yeah.
When they were in the very early rounds of this tournament and pre-fishing, they threw the heck out of that thing because it's a great finder.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we kind of know about that style of fishing.
I'm gonna grab one of those big wake baits so everybody can see it real quick.
We kind of did this stuff up on Raystown Lake, fishing for stripers, and I believe it was June that the stripers make a run down by the dam, and they just blast on shad and stuff down there. And one of the really great techniques is waking cotton cordell redfin minnow, a 5-inch or 7-inch redfin minnow. You would fire it out there and just slow wake it right across the surface. And that bait was it still is a really excellent fish catcher for stripers up on Raystown Lake. We've had some great success with the Rapala wake bait. I think this is one George is getting on some of the Finger Lakes up north on big largemouth, and that's something that post spawn guys were throwing a lot of around the edge of the grass and having some great success on largemouth on this bait too. You can see how this thing. Which one's that? That's a Spro Zero minnow. It's got a big lip on it. Yeah, perfect. You can see the lip is almost straight up and down, not quite, and that's what allows it to wake. And you just fish it real slow, and you get that nice side to side wobble, and it just puts off a little V wake, and they absolutely destroy that thing. Yep. So that's a good one.
It's a big.
It's a big heavy bait.
It's a 130.
Yeah.
It's a big spawn time bait. These wake minnows.
Yeah.
Back in the day, the Bomber Long A.
Yeah, right. The red fins.
Heat up the lip and bend it down to get it in that angle, and
yeah,
that spawned all these waking minnows that a lot of the balsa guys make them. Greenfish Tackle makes one out of balsa.
Yeah.
This Spro Zero minnow is absolutely spectacular. The Rapala BX waking minnow is absolutely spectacular. And you can just wind them over those big flats where those fish spawn, and they blast it.
Yeah.
They blast it. And if you miss them, you can throw another bait back on them. You can come in with a wacky rig Senko.
Yeah.
Or anything else, really. It's a great finder, and a lot of times a big fish will eat it.
They will eat that thing.
So that wake and minnow is a very specific spawn time bait.
Yep. Guaranteed.
And this tournament is showing that.
Guaranteed.
At least it was in the earlier rounds.
Yes.
So
What's up?
Cool.
What's up there, Jack Hinkle, Jesse McNutt, Joshua Weinberner's in the house, and Crappy Kev's here giving us some toad action. He likes to throw the toad. And Kenny Hodgins here. What do you say, guys? So that was so tomorrow's the climax of that tournament, and looking forward to seeing how that goes tomorrow morning. I'm gonna try to watch it first thing. Have Kate put it up first thing in the morning.
They start at 8
and watch that. Well, I have to watch some of it on the way to work.
Yeah, they start at 8
and watch that bite.
It's going to be hot and heavy right off the get.
It's going to be quick.
Yeah, right off the get go, and they're going to bang them all day,
yeah.
man. You know, last week under tournament talk, I didn't get a chance to touch on a couple things, and I really want to shout out. You know, for those of you who are not in this area, don't know where our shop is, we're like in South Central Pennsylvania. And just kind of 30, 40 minutes from here is the town of Hershey. You know, for those of you not familiar, Hershey chocolate.
Oh yeah.
No, that's where Hershey.
Everybody knows Hershey chocolate.
So there's a young man there by the name of Sam Moll, M-O-L-L, who, before he went off to college, you could see him frequenting the shop here and cruising the aisles. Very serious bass angler, student of the game. I've had some great conversations with him. And one of the things that he always was big on was an A-rig. He learned every little aspect of the A-rig. And he was also a big-time swim bait guy. I'm not talking big glide baits. I'm talking, you know, mag draft size down to, you know, boot foot, paddle foot swim baits. Anyway, setting the stage. He is fishing for Murray State College in Kentucky.
Yeah.
For his college education. He's on the Murray State team. And this is really exciting stuff, man. I've been following this young man. He's fishing the BFLs this year in the LBL division, which is heavy on Kentucky Lake, obviously. He won the first hill.
Yeah.
And that division is stacked with, you know, former tour level anglers to regional sticks that just, you know, just take your lunch money every week. And here's this young man who's going to college there. And, you know, he threw A-rig and swim bait.
Oh, yeah.
And he's dialed in. And I am very proud of him, as everyone here is at Tackle Shop Live and Susquehanna Fishing Tackle. Sam Moll.
Sam, congratulations on your wins, brother.
Killer, man.
Keep it up.
Killer. And the other thing is interesting is some guys that we've had on the show before, and that is Tucker Smith and Logan Parks.
Right.
They won the $1 million in the Johnny Morris tournament, the Bass Pro Shops, I don't know, $1 million tournament, the Bass Open. I don't know what they called it. Bass Pro US Open, my bad. Bass Pro US Open. They won the $1 million, right? They were on the show. We talked about their live scope ability and their college careers. Well, guess what? They had one last college championship to fish. And that was the College Classic on the Bassmaster side of things. There's a lot of college trails. This is the Bassmaster, sponsored by Strike King, big time. And these guys were...
That was the last tournament they could fish.
They were eligible. They were eligible for this tournament. And it was on Watts Bar Lake. And they won. And they're no strangers to winning. Because they won the 2021 College Team of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, we talked about how they won the million, and they're both fishing the opens, and they're both doing fabulous there. Although Tucker Smith had a little bit of a rough go at the last open, it's well documented. He had, some interference from an angler, and it cost his day 2 weight to get DQ'd. But had that not happened, he probably would have finished
top 10 for sure. 6th place,
7th.
Yeah, I was going to say 6th or 7th.
And Logan Parks was 8th in that tournament. So, keeping tabs on our young anglers that we're following. Wanted to share that with you all. We're talking here at the shop all the time, and feel as though you guys would enjoy hearing it.
Oh yeah.
And we want to dab them up a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Love them kids. Love watching the kids come up through the sport and and follow them. The other guy that we really liked was the guy from Canada, Cooper Gallant.
Cooper made his dream, and he's fishing the Elite Series. Fished a classic.
He fished a classic, and just a great kid, really super nice kid, and it's just nice seeing them kind of go up through the ranks, and
they probably don't appreciate us calling them kids.
I don't know. I'm gonna call them kids.
They're
like 23 years old.
Yeah, they're not kids, but we call them kids. We don't mean it in a bad way.
Yeah, I don't mean it in a bad way at all.
No,
I wish I was their age. You can call me a kid all you want if I was their age. I don't care.
I mean, you were.
Yeah, but I'd like to be there again. Imagine if you had all these opportunities.
I don't think this part of the world right here.
Imagine if you had
could handle that timeline again.
They couldn't.
So let's not go there.
Imagine, having these opportunities that are available for the up and comers, the kids in high school, the kids in middle school, and coming up through and then jumping into college, and just these opportunities are fantastic, and it's crazy that people aren't taking advantage of them.
You know what? I
Northeast.
I totally get it, bro. I remember, and you remember well when we tried to fish.
Yeah.
We couldn't tow the boat and run the AC in our truck at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
To hell with rigging rods. We were wrenching on boats.
Yeah.
We'd beat that thing to death all day long.
Keeping it together, man.
Work on it all night long.
Oh, we loved it.
And now the opportunities that these young anglers have, and their skill level, and
it's pretty awesome.
It's awesome.
It's really awesome. Okay.
Enough on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's move on to a thing we like to call tackle talk. Now, this is a tackle show. It's called Tackle Shop. So it's all about tackle. And we always have a little segment on here for you guys that are just dropping in for the first time. We have a segment here, and we talk about some of the brand new releases, what we think about them, when they're going to be, sometimes they're not available right away. Sometimes they're coming out. But we had gotten some stuff in here recently. We just want to go over and touch base with you on it and what we think of it. What do you got here, George?
Well, I tried to pick out a few of the newer arrivals. And this whole pretty much, I got 4 items. The first 3 are all Team Daiwa.
Yeah.
So we're gonna show Team Daiwa some love tonight.
Yeah. Let's talk about this one. I'm really excited about this sucker right here.
Yeah. So what Mike is playing with there is the new Tatula MQLT. And MQ is a designation that Tatula gives, or Tatula. It's a designation that Daiwa gives to their reels with the Monaco body, which basically, if you see that big circular side plate where the handle goes in, yes, very good, Mike. That's basically a big plate that kind of screws into the side of the reel. So it's not a traditional, 1, 2, 3 screws, take the side plate off. It's more of a one-piece body and then an access plate, if you will, that allows for a larger drive gear, allows for I guess the proper terminology is a more rigid side plate, if you will. And it's a great concept They can do it on aluminum. They can also do it on Zion, which is their kind of composite material that is literally got less flex than aluminum. This is the Zion 5, which is a new version of Zion. Very, very lightweight. It's got the air drive rotor, which is pretty cool. It's a big ported out, hollowed out rotor.
Yeah, it is. It's extremely light in your hand.
And the rotors, the air drive rotor is all about startup inertia, very little startup inertia.
Yeah, people don't really understand what that's all about, but the lighter you can make this rotor, that when you turn the handle, when you're just sitting there and you just want to get the handle going a little bit, it's the energy that it takes to start that rotor spinning. The lighter you can make that, the easier that is to turn. You can literally just do it with one little finger, and it really translates. Honestly, it translates to more feel in your hand. You're not fighting the reel, and it gives you more feel in your hand when you're fishing.
Yeah, I mean it's quite the nice reel. The price hasn't changed. It's still $190.
That's the thing that blew me away. It's $199. I can't believe it.
Yeah, the price hasn't changed. It's still $199.99.
Crazy. We got some.
It's a 8 bearing, 1 anti-reverse bearing reel. It's a 1000 size, which is, a little smaller. I like to call it more of an ultralight sized reel.
Panfish, 4 and 6 pound test mostly. Some 8, little bit of 8, little touch of 8.
That's a 5.8 to 1 gear ratio, retrieving just under 29 inches of line per crank, which is a lot for a little 1000 reel.
Yeah.
There's a 2500 size.
Very nice size.
6.2 to 1. That's retrieving about 34.5 inches of line per crank.
That's going to fit your 6.6s, 6.8, 7 footers, your 10 pound, 15 pound braid, your 6 pound and 8 pound fluorocarbons. Fits that real nice.
There's two 3000 versions. There's same reel, but there's a deep spool version, and then there's a shallow spool version, and they're both 6.2, and they're retrieving almost 37 inches per crank.
And a interesting point on that is the 3000 and the 2500. There is not a huge difference like there used to be. So even the last 2 years, they've narrowed them down. They made them a little bit smaller than they used to be, and it's not a huge difference, but there is a little bit of weight difference.
There's a big diameter difference on the spool. On the 3000, they do make a nice big 3. And what's nice about that,
I just don't understand a deep spool.
What's that?
What's the deep spool all about?
More line capacity.
Yeah.
Are they saltwater safe? Yeah.
Are they?
The 3000 with the larger diameter spool is great for fluorocarbon because you're wrapping it in a little more larger diameter. And then there's a 4000, which, if you look at the pros on tour that fish and fluorocarbon on a spinning reel, they're all using 4000s because they want that big diameter spool. It's also 6.2 to 1, and that's cranking in 39 inches of line per crank. So, check them out. Tatula MQLT. Interesting side note, the Tatula LTs, which were, pretty bad to the bone, we have our remaining stock at 25% off.
Unadvertised, only for you guys on here on
well, actually, it is kind of advertised. We put an emailer out on it. Oh. But I wanted to point that out to you. 25% off. So if you did well in high school in your math classes, you can figure that out real quick. So that's the Tatula MQ. That was a Bassmasters Classic release, as well as the new Steez, which is also a Bassmasters Classic release. Now, this one here is a little more bougie. This is $649.99. This is the Steez A100. And what's interesting about this reel is you have 9 corrosion-resistant ball bearing, 1 mag-sealed ball bearing, and you have the you know, the duraluminum, the G1 duraluminum spool, which is their lightest spool. But their mag control casting, you know, because these reels are all mag. You use hardly any spool break. It's minimum spool break, maximum range on the mag. But the interesting thing about this, you'll read this is Mag Z Boost. And what that means is if you're into throwing real light lures, like what they call BFS these days, or just lightweight, you know, regular Mag Force 5 is not the best for that. It's not bad, but it's not the best. It does a good job, but this has and if you take your side plate off and pull out on your little inductor, you'll notice there's like a 2-step. Well, that first step is all about that real lightweight. So it's set up for that. Comes in 2 ratios, a 7-1 or an 8-5, 6.7 ounces, super light, 29.8 inches of line per crank on the 7, 35.7 on the 8.5. So also a Bassmasters Classic release, Steez A from Daiwa, in stock. Our next Iowa item that we have from you is a pro staff pick. This comes from SFT pro staffer Jason Shea, who is a hardcore Susquehanna River smallmouth guide. He is everything smallmouth, year-round guide service, full-time on the Susquehanna. And he started fishing the TD minnows last year when we had some low water. And we have, if you'll be so kind to take my TD minnows over to the camera. There's a couple more colors for you. The TD minnow it's interesting because we're going to be talking about jerkbait fishing tonight, but it's a really sophisticated, shallow-lipped jerkbait. It has a very nice knocker-style single-weight transfer system in it that also provides a nice thumping knocker sound. And obviously a suspending bait, $17.99, whole bunch of colors. You got to check them out on the website to really see them. There's a pink. There's a pink. I don't know what they call it, but it's a pink back. Mike's going to show it to you here. That is, yeah, he said the hooks are sharp. He's sticking himself. That's pretty good, Mike, but maybe, yeah, there you go. Nice focus right there. That's the pink back. I don't know what they call the colors. You have to look at them on the sfttackle.com. 2 hooks, super sharp. TD minnows, $17.99. Shallow running jerkbait. Very effective, according to SFT pro staffer Jason Shea and all of his clients. So check those bad boys out. Give you a second to eyeball them. Cast like a bullet, too. You might as well stay there, Mike, and I'll hand you our last item for tonight. This one here, coming up next, I'm pretty excited about. You know, one thing that coincides with springtime and spawn season and grass is a swimming worm. And we talk about quite a few of them. You know, we've talked about, you know, the big bite tour worms, all the Zoom, you know, ultra vibe speed worms, mag ultra vibe speed worms. There's tons of them. They're just go on and on and on. But this is cool. This is the new Rage Tail twin tail menace worm. And it's a twin tail swimming worm. You know, and this thing has got a ton of I don't want to say potential, but uses, from, traditional Texas rig worm to traditional swim worm technique. Bust off the back half of that worm and have it as a finesse jig trailer. I mean, the thing is awesome. It's it's got the coffee scent. It comes in all the killer colors. That color right there that Mike was showing you is their red bug. And they're in a nice inner clam, so all the tails are perfect. You don't get. We know how Mike feels about the bent tails.
Hate the bent tails.
This inner clam package is what you're going to get. All the tails are perfect. These are nice worms.
Excellent.
Yep, excellent worm.
I'm definitely going to throw that this year.
Of course you are.
I am.
You're a wormer.
I just like swimming a worm.
Don't I know it? So there you go. That's Tackle Talk.
I gotta go get some Band-Aids for my hands. Those freaking hooks, man, on those jerkbaits. It's all stuck in me.
You're gonna have to retrieve those from the showroom floor because
I mean,
if somebody comes in there and looks at an eye rod tomorrow,
yeah,
we're gonna need the jaws of life to get them hooks out.
Yeah, them things are sticky.
Yeah, so that's what you got this week. Next week, I've already got 3 or 4 hot items for you. Don't want to lay it all on you at once. We don't want any sensory overload here.
Yeah, so that's a nice little mix of products, and you can go on our website, sfttackle.com, and check them out and do some digging around and sniffing around at those things. If you're local, come on in, check them out, get them in your hands. It's always nice to touchy-feely that stuff, especially these reels. Get these reels in your hands. Spectacular, absolutely spectacular. And while we're out of here, if everybody, thanks so much for stopping in. A lot of new faces stopping in here, and hanging out with us here at Tackle Shop Live. If you could just do us a favor and like and share on the platform that you're on, Facebook and YouTube, and comment on there and share it with your friends and let your friends know what you're doing on Thursday nights. And join in and have a good old time with George and I and Nick, cameraman Nick, usually. That would be great. And then also keep an eye on our TikTok. We have some great videos on there, some short stuff that's helpful and funny. You can check us out on TikTok. All right, we're gonna get on to the main topic of the night, and the main topic tonight is jerkbait fishing. Love me some jerkbait fishing.
Second that notion.
This is the time of the year we've been doing it. Of course, over the winter we talked about wintertime jerkbait fishing, and in fall last year. But this is a time of year to really throw a jerkbait. For us here in the Northeast, it's perfect timing for everything. The fish are moving. You can cover a lot of water with it. But the fish are feeding now, and the one thing that they're doing is eating big baits, and these jerk baits are just a perfect little morsel for them. So this is the time of year. So tell us, George, what your favorite setup is as far as looking at where you're fishing and what you're looking for this time of year.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me the jerkbait has changed a lot. I used to really pigeonhole the jerkbait into fall through pre-spawn. And, as we grow as anglers and as we expand our horizons, I found out that I was pretty wrong on that, and the turning point for me started about, I would say about 7 or 8 years ago. And I was on the Potomac River, and I was on some grass, and it was probably still kind of a spawn, like a late part of the spawn, but there was a lot of post-spawn fish. And a cold front came roaring through. My dad and I were down to fish a tournament, and we had a great practice. And the first day of the tournament, we were struggling. We were fishing basically the inside edge of a big grass line, and over top of the grass. The grass was still kind of short, wasn't all topped out. And boy, the bites, man. We won practice, but man, we were struggling on day one of that tournament. And I reached in my jerkbait box, which I only had one then. Now I have 3. And I pulled out a little bitty. Let me see if I can find it. Here it is. I pulled out a little bitty 78 Lucky Craft Pointer 78 clown color. Might even been this bait right here. I mean, this bad boy is a veteran. It's got the hook, where the hook swings are on the side of this bait are grooves. And I chose that 78 because I could keep it over the grass on a heavier line. And I started jerking that thing a little more aggressively than I normally would. And guess what? Game on. And that kind of stuck with me. And, some time went by. And I was fishing another tournament with my dad, this time for smallmouth on the upper Susquehanna. And we were on some good fish, and then the bite went slow. And that particular tournament, we were catching them on a mega bass 110, but we were only fishing in 2 or 3 foot of water. And it was, a summer pattern, maybe a really, really late post spawn, early summer pattern, kind of a tricky time. But the jerkbait triggered them. The problem was, if you know anything about the 110, that was really the bait we were getting bit on. It dives too deep for that, and it's delicate for banging off a rock that hard. So
it's a finesse. It's a finesse jerkbait.
Yeah, it kind of is.
It is.
So I rigged it up on 14-pound mono, so I could rip it aggressively and take, 3/4 of the depth capabilities off of it. And we went on to do really well in that tournament. So those 2 events, those 2 circumstances started to shape my thought process into the jerkbait as a year-round serious player. And then with the advent of forward-facing sonar, that has absolutely cemented it. Because now on forward-facing sonar, when I'm on a body of water where that comes into play, and, Mike and I have talked about our one little reservoir we have here called Conowinga Pool, Conowinga Lake, whatever they call it. We fish a circuit there that our good friend Brian Setlock runs with his partner. And, we enjoy that. But that our live scope plays a lot there. And a lot of times we find these fish doing what they do, but what we didn't think they do. So now we're just chasing suspended fish around. And Mike and I have found the jerkbait is like 1 or 2 in the rotation for that. And that little line test trick, now I've got jerkbaits rigged up on 10-pound fluorocarbon. I've got jerkbaits rigged up on 12-pound fluorocarbon. And I have other rods with other baits on them that I can cut off and put a jerkbait on with heavier line to make them shallower and shallower. Now we can dial those baits in, and it's real easy on forward to see the depth. And boom, the jerkbait has transitioned into a serious year-round bait for many of all you. I mean, I hear it every day, right?
Yeah.
So,
yep,
that's probably my first observation I want to make about jerkbait fishing.
Yeah, I think also what a lot of guys make when you fish a jerkbait, one of the things that you got to realize is what is going on for the day. What's the weather doing? What's the temperature? What was it? Was it warming? Is it cooling? And one of the big things that helped me out a lot with my jerkbait fishing is cadence. Working the bait at different cadences throughout the day to come up with the proper speed for your fish. And once I started really messing with that and really messing with speed, anything from a long pause in a cold water situation, and I mean like 10, 12, 25 seconds, to a 1 second or quicker retrieve. You gotta do everything in between to figure out what those fish want. For instance, we were out over the weekend and we were fishing, and we tried fishing the jerk bait, and we weren't really having success with it, and we fished it. We were fishing a little bit slow, kind of dead sticking it. But we messed around with the speed, and we kind of came up with a certain speed that they wanted. They wanted dead sticking, but they wanted it swinging in the current, and but they wanted it kind of moved. They'll hit it when it was moving, or when it was sitting still, but they wanted some flash out of it. So you got to mess with how fast you're going to jerk your jerk bait in, and that plays a big role even in the summertime when you're fishing these fish that are
to me, that's the most important aspect of it, is
forward facing,
is the cadence of the retrieve. I can, from dead. And the beautiful thing about a jerkbait is from dead stick to rapid fire, the jerkbait covers every one of those aspects, from 2 foot of water or less to 15 foot of water or more. The jerkbait covers all those aspects. Really, the only time I would rule a jerkbait out is in muddy water.
Yeah.
And actually, I carry with me at all times a Super Rogue and Fire Tiger. I mean, this bad boy has been around the block. I carry this with me at all times, and I've actually
there's another one over there that we throw too.
Yeah,
in the other box, the red one.
Oh yeah. Well, this one here's a more of an impact color for me. I'll throw this in crystal clear water.
That's a good cold, dirty water color too.
It is. It very, very well is. But other than muddy water, and I'm not telling you to go out and jerkbait fish in muddy water. I mean, the jerkbait plays. I guess the point of this is it went from pigeonholed to year round. And I do mean year round. I mean in the winter months. If you give me a warming trend, and we've talked about this to the point where I can't even hardly say it again. You give me a good 3-day warming trend in the winter, and I will flat out jerkbait up some big, giant smallmouth in 39, 38 degree water. So it's a year round bait. And so important that, we like to talk about it.
Yep. Got a good question here from Sam and Sam. Mike and George, how often do you throw a jerkbait on a spinning rod? Do you notice a difference in action? Well, George and I never throw a jerkbait on a spinning rod.
I don't like to.
Now, I would say that, never is probably pretty strong, because there's some little baits, like sometimes that pointer 78 can be thrown on a spinning rod. That it would definitely work on that.
I throw this on a spinning rod.
There's a few baits. It's real small.
That's a little Rapala. I don't even know what they call it.
Quick stoppers, something stop.
Rip stop.
Rip stop.
That little rip stop right there, I throw on a spinning rod, and I only carry this for super clear, super low water.
Yeah,
because I can fish that in a foot of water.
Yeah, I think it has a shallow lip on it, and so there's a few. So never's. I
only carry one.
Never's kind of strong to say that, but probably 98% of the time we're throwing ours.
99.9.
We're throwing ours on casting rods, but we have some really close fishing friends and guides that we fish with, who do throw their jerk baits on spinning rods, and I don't know how they do it. And I'm not saying it. They catch them. They definitely catch them, but I don't like it. I don't like throwing. The majority of the baits that I'm throwing are 4.5 to 5 inch baits, and they I like them on a jerk. I like them on a casting rod. And for a number of reasons, which we're going to get into here in just a couple of minutes.
I'd like to chime in on this. on this question because it fits all forms of fishing. You know, you can build your system around whatever works for you. And given time and tweaking, you can get that system dialed in. You can be every bit of as effective jerkbait fishing on a spinning rod as you can on a casting rod. But there's a lot of limitations, and you're going to have to overcome them. For example, the ability to fish with a 12-pound or higher fluorocarbon. That is not spinning reel work. So you're going to have to, go to that 4,000 reel setup in order to do that. Or maybe you only jerk bait on a spinning rod,
shallow water.
Most of the time, not all the time. But there's nothing right or nothing wrong with that. It's just, I think it's really important as fishermen to think about your system, the fact that you learn it and you make it work for you.
Yep. Absolutely.
I kind of think that's the way to look at that.
The system that George and I use is all about moving the bait and as in a direction, a side, up, down, or side direction, and not so much a forward direction. I believe the softer the rod, the more forward direction you get out of your jerk bait. In other words, when you're working your jerk bait with a soft tip rod, it allows the bait to kind of get pulled along in a straight fashion, and you're covering more distance. So in warmer waters, I think the softer tips, do come into play because you want to move the bait a lot. But for how George and I fish, we just speed up our cadence. And our system is a medium heavy action rod with either 10 or 12-pound test fluorocarbon, and sometimes 15, depending on where we're at. And we're snapping the slack line, but we need a stiff tip rod because we want the bait to kind of work in an up and down or a sideways with a slack line to get a more erratic action out of it. And then when we pause it, there's enough slack in the line that we can create pretty quickly that the bait is allowed to move naturally in the water column. Now, this is something where it's probably one of the biggest tips for strikes out there is leaving enough slack in your line to let the bait, when it's paused, to move naturally in the water column. And that could be wind driven currents in lakes. It could be a kind of a wavy action because the water's rough. You get that natural movement of the bait. It couldn't be current seam. It could be currents in a river where the water runs over rocks and it's allowing that bait to float naturally in the natural current. One of the biggest tips that we give people is if you're able to control your line and leave enough slack in your line and allow the bait to work naturally in the water column that you're fishing, you will absolutely get more bites. That's proven, hands down. It's a proven thing. When the water's warm, it's not so important for that bait to really sit still long. So that movement in the water column isn't as important. But right now, 45-degree water temperature up through the 50s, the mid 50s, even the high 50s. You got a little bit more of a pause, and you want that bait to work in that column of water and allow it to move naturally. Plus that slack line, when you work the bait and it ends up over here, if you reel that up, you're bringing it straight and taking up your slack. And then when you jerk it again, you don't have the quite the movement. George and I, when we do it, we create the slack. It stays over here and it maybe bounces around a little bit. But when we hit it, it's got a bigger swing and a much more erratic action. I think that triggers the fish that we do. So mess around with that. We're not saying that the spinning rod is a wrong thing, because I fish with guys that just whack them on spinning rods. But for the way we fish is creating that slack line and getting those bites in that situation where it's a little bit trickier. I think forward facing is another perfect time for slack line when you're bringing that bait up, and you pop it, and bring it right up next to the fish, and you pop it and leave a slack in there. It'll allow that bait to maybe look at the fish and come up on an angle that just is intimidating to the fish, and you'll get a lot more strikes out of it that way, by leaving that slack on the line. So it's real important to be able to do that. And the medium, heavy, stiffer rod allows us to control that slack line much better, at least in our minds.
Yeah, that's a pretty much it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say, looking at rods, 6'10" medium, 6'10" medium heavy, down to a 6'6" medium, 6'6" medium heavy. And there's a lot of, people that, again, it's the system you get used to, that are comfortable with 7 foot. So, 6'6" to 7 foot, I'm going to lean real heavy on 6'6", 6'8", 6'10" in my recommendations, medium to medium heavy. Medium heavy is not too heavy, but try to stick with a fast taper.
Mm-hmm.
In no way, shape, or form are we saying that your extra fast taper is not a good choice, because it does work well, but the fast taper is much more forgiving. So try to stick with a fast taper if you can. In your
and 10 and 12 pound fluorocarbon, mess with your line diameters, and even mess with 15. Absolutely. Reel wise, gear ratio, I like a 7-to-1 to pick up the line, quickly, and to fight the fish. I like 7-to-1 for that. And some of the cast is some portion of your cast isn't effective, so I like to reel it in quickly and get another cast out. 7-to-1 works great for that. I know guys that like 8-to-1. Talked to a guy today who likes a 8-to-1 for jerk baiting, and I totally get that too. That's no problem. So a little bit faster gear ratio may help you also.
I mean, it's not going to hurt you, because the reel does not work the bait.
No.
The rod works the bait. So, I mean, whatever gear ratio you choose, keep in mind that the reel is what works the bait, not the rod.
The rod works the bait, not the reel.
Right.
You said it opposite there. Just fixing that.
Yeah. Okay. So anyways, getting back into the meat and potatoes of this, kind of got sidetracked there.
Not really. That covers the equipment.
It sure does.
And that's one of your notes.
So the biggest thing is the proper way to work a jerk bait. And we go over this a lot because it's important. And I really think it's important to focus on, pick a spot on the water, pop the rod down. But when you pop the rod down, recoil back. So hit it and recoil back. The rod will stay in front of you. So what I mean by that is, if you think about your jerkbait fishing and you think about the fact that you're moving your rod like this and your rod ends up over here, that's not good, because you're actually moving that bait, several feet. Okay. Whereas if you keep that rod in front of you, point it down, pop it, recoil back, pop it, recoil back. You can pop it 3 times. You can pop it twice. You can pop it with a long pause, pop it again. Whatever that cadence is, it is. But the mechanics of, down in front, pick a spot, recoil back, use your reel to pick up the slack. Try to leave a little bit of slack in there. So when you reel that slack up, don't reel it all up. And you're kind of getting a cadence. You'll find yourself kind of popping and reeling at the same time once you get really dialed into it. But I think that concept sums it up the best. And it's what you need to do. Sweeping hook sets, you're not worm fishing or jig fishing. So a lot of times you'll get bit on the paws. Those bites will range from, like a solid jig bite watch that slack line. You'll see the slack line jump. You'll feel like a tick, like a jig bite. Just sweep the rod. A lot of times you'll go to hit the bait again for your next cadence, your next series, and the fish is just there. Just continue with that sweep. You got smaller hooks, right? Most jerk baits are rigged up with size 5 hooks. So they're not tiny, but they're not big. They got little points. They got little barbs. You can pull them out of that fish, but just keep that tension on. And a lot of times during that fight, that fish will roll and get another hook in them. So, it's finesse on the hook set and the fight. Just keep the tension there and don't horse the fish. Okay? If you don't have a really good drag on your reel and he surges, press the button and let some line out with your thumb if it's a big fish. But the mechanics is so important. So practice that, the next time you're out there.
Yeah, and that cadence is what I said earlier about creating that slack line. And it's very, very important to leave slack line in there. I can't even emphasize that much how important slack line is when in jerkbait fishing. Totally something you really got to work on. And I guided so much over the years with people who I've taught how to jerkbait fish, and it's so hard to break the habit of jerk, reel up your slack. Jerk, reel up your slack. It's so hard to break that habit. I've fought with it with guys. But once they learn it, they can't believe the difference between 1 strike and 10 strikes. And if you don't think it's that different, then just keep doing what you're doing. I'm telling you, it's a difference between 1 strike and 10 strikes. If a guy is tight line his jerk bait, he's the guy getting 1 bite, and the guy that's doing it right with the slack line is getting 10 bites. And I'm not kidding you when I say that. So learn that slack line technique. It's very, very, very important on your bites. So let's talk a couple of baits here. Some stuff that we really like to throw. Some stuff. I don't know. What are you just organizing all your stuff over there?
Well, I'm kind of getting some stuff ready to talk about.
Perfect. This is perfect what he does right here. He's a very organized human being, and takes every possible moment he can to organize his tackle. I love it.
Yeah, well, that, and I'm trying to get some stuff ready to show people. So you got tons of jerk baits, right? So let's talk about, like, I don't know, 4 or 5 of the most popular effective jerk baits. So you got from Rapala, you've got the X-Rap.
Beautiful bait.
The 10 size. Okay. Just a good all around, medium running. I would say you're going to get probably a good 5 foot out of it on the average. Real erratic action, mid size, highly recommended.
And it comes with that feathered tail on the back.
Comes with a feather on the back.
Some people swear that's what it's all about.
Yeah, feather. I mean, I'm always thinking about that.
Yeah,
because like a topwater,
all the X-Rap baits have that.
Yeah, a topwater, I don't like to fish without a feather, and no other jerkbait that I own has a feather on the back. But I fish that because it comes that way, and I catch fish on it all the time.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good sitting still bait.
Yeah, so it's it makes the rotation.
Yeah.
Okay. It makes the rotation. So next up, and we're gonna go from no particular order, is what I think is tied for first or sharing first place in the all-time greatness of jerkbaits, and that's a Lucky Craft Pointer 100. And I got that right here to show you. This is This is a fish catching jerkbait. I'm going to put it at tied for first because I think in my world and Mike's world, the Vision 110 is an equal shareholder of that turf.
Well, the Pointer 100 to me is that bait that it's just that bigger profile. When it's a bait that's, I think, really shines a lot better in the colder water times, the fall and the early spring. To me, that's when it really super shines. And I think it's because the bait that's around is a little bit bigger. I don't know. It's just a phenomenal, and it's pretty easy. If you look at our some of our videos we've shot over the years, one of the things we say is that you could literally just go fishing with two colors in the Lucky Craft Pointer 100, and that's the Ghost Minnow, the Ghost Minnow and the Chartreuse Shad. In the Pointer 100, you could cover every situation ever. Overcast skies, to a little fuzz hair stain in the water, to bright, sunny, crystal clear water. Those two colors cover everything in between, and it's absolutely staggering how good they are.
Of course, everyone recognizes that bait. It's probably one of the most famous jerk baits ever, and that's a Mega Bass Vision 110. In our book, it's tied for first. We're not really, stressing the power rankings here.
Yeah.
We're just stressing the importance of these baits to our fishing world. I mean,
so different than
and I don't care where you go.
Yeah, different than the Lucky Craft in my mind. It goes from a power fishing bait, something that's bulkier and bigger and more powerful, like the Pointer 100, to what we call a finesse jerk bait, something that the detail, the color, the action, the castability of it, where you need to cast real far, get it out away from the boat further, spooky fish, that type of thing. That's kind of where that falls into that category. However, we've had it where we worked it super hard and fast, and they just wanted those colors. They have great colors. They have colors you can specialize for any situation, and really get dialed into what they fish really want. So it's really, really important. You can see this is only one box of our Mega Bass. I think he didn't bring the other one, but we have 2 boxes of Mega Bass, and there's probably, I don't know, 30 baits in each one. But they're, duplicates, of course, but there's many, many colors. There's the perch colors, there's the real natural colors, there's the greenbacks, there's the purple tails, there's the purple hue, there's matte finishes, because with a finesse jerk bait, I think it's very important to have all those colors, and you're really dialing in on color.
Next up, that made the lineup for us pretty much since day one, is Shimano World Minnow and World Diver. And this thing got into the lineup because from the very get-go, we have been catching fish on this thing constantly. The World Diver, a little bit shorter, runs a little bit deeper than the World Minnow. Just solid fish catching baits. So it made the lineup. It's in the box here. In no particular order, but I would say, second or third place if I had to.
Yeah, I mean, the World Minnow, I don't we just had such great success with it. My biggest success with the World Minnow is the fact that little piece of reflective material in the inside wiggles so easily, and it just is one of them triggering devices that the fish just love it and they eat it. Absolutely. We've had some extraordinary days on it. One of the big things with these baits is if you're checking them out, they have different size lips on them. You know, a pointer 100 has a certain size lip that gets a little bit deeper than you know, say Rapala or X-Wrap, or you know, I fish these baits right here, which are Strike King baits. The 200, for instance, for me is a shallow water. It really stays nice and shallow. You can fish it in 2, 3, 4 foot of water, and it has a nice profile on that bait. But it's nice and shallow, that 200. You can really fish it nice. The other one that we got to show you is the I don't know if he has any in the box there, is the suspending slash maybe slow sinker. When you're fishing deeper water, that, you know, it's good to have a couple of those in your box, because you know, it may be that you're fishing forward facing sonar and the fish are in 15 foot of water. You're not quite getting down to them. You can use these slow sinking.
Oh, I have that, but
baits.
mine's a little different.
Well, I think you have the ones I'm talking about is the Berkeley ones, George, and right here, this bait, slow sinking. The Stunna is a really cool bait, and you put that on real heavy fluorocarbon, and you can get this thing way down and get it going. The deeper lips, that World Minnow with the deep lip, I've hung them up in 12 feet of water. A great bait to get down.
This is my favorite slow sinker. It's called the Suspend Strip. And if you look at some of these baits, are dialed in with it. Like this big old Rogue right here. He's got at least 2 dots. And that's where you want to put that weight, between the front hook hanger and the lip. So dots and strips are really, really important to carry in your box. You can cut the strip, as you can see. You can stack them. Very important to jerkbait fishing, because the water changes density at different temperatures, especially in the cold months.
And the fish hang out at different depths, you know.
And sometimes you want to make that bait slowly sink.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't want that bait to suspend. So, you know, we find ourselves making some random adjustments on the baits with the stickers. Great invention, by the way, Storm. Many years ago when you invented that.
How was it in the 90s?
Killer invention. Yeah. I think that product was invented because of
the Rogue.
The Rogue.
It definitely was.
Right?
Absolutely. That thing, you know, they even made a suspending rod that never suspended. It always floated.
Okay, so. My last one I want to highlight in the top 5 players is the Jackal Re-Range. This is the one when you cast, you think your rod broke because of the sound that the weight transfer makes.
Yeah.
This is, you'll notice when you look at this bait, it has literally flat sides. Literally, the sides are flat. Comes in a 110 main size.
Yeah. Comes
in a 130, because every now and again you got to get big bait for big bait.
Yeah.
I'm a 110 guy, and the colors are spectacular. It's a suspending bait. This is a hell of a bait. So that's kind of me and Mike's lineup.
Yeah, there was a guy here that said something about colors. Now,
yeah, that's the next segment.
Yeah, colors, you know, are crazy. It's absolute, and jerkbaits especially. You know, it's.
Well, let's break it down. Let's break it down from this term. So you're going to have a sunny day, clear water. You're going to want something that is somewhat translucent. So if you look at that bait, you can see through it. Okay, a ghost minnow, right?
Yeah, a ghost minnow would be a perfect name for that type of color, but there's a ton of them, but that's one everybody would understand.
So this would be like your traditional, you know, ghost minnow type color, right? That's a Megabass Stealth Wagasaki.
You can see the weights. You see how you can see right through there and see the weights there? Yep.
You know, and you got to think of it like the water's clear, the sky's sunny, the fish is looking up. You know, you want that suggestion, right? Because they're a little more, I don't know if gun shy is the right terminology, but let's take that same clear water. Let's take the next day you go out and you did really good the day before on your jerk baits, and the next day it's cloudy, it's overcast, and your ghost minnow is not working. A great starting point is going to be something opaque. And we always lean heavily on like what we would call a chartreuse shad. Of course, there's extreme many versions of that. You know, there's a Strike King version. But if you notice these baits, I like to use the term painted. They're opaque. They're causing a silhouette. You know, because it's all visual. So you got your translucents, like a ghost minnow, which I would call ghost minnow, stealth Wagasaki, you know, whatever your manufacturer of choice calls it. Get that. Chartreuse shad. You know, there's every manufacturer has a version of this, right?
Yeah.
Some are more subtle. This is a very subtle, right? Strike King, sexy shad, right? They made sexy shad famous. Hank Cherry made the Megabass color famous, you know, which is kind of along that lineup, right? So something like that. Then you have to have what you know are the flashies, the colors that have some flash, right?
Metallics.
So you need, like, Megabass calls theirs halftones, HTs. You got a little translucent on the belly. You got a little flash on the back. HT Edo Tennessee Shad. HT Edo Wagasaki. Lucky Craft has numerous ones of them. One of my favorites over the years has been Clown. Flashy, little chartreuse, little red. Love it on a cloudy day. Love it in the fall for smallmouth and crystal clear water on a sunny day. I think the point that Mike and I are usually talking about is don't get crazy, but have your basics, but, you know, have a impact color. You know, have an impact color. And I'll tell you, if you're a smallmouth fisherman or a clear water largemouth fisherman, don't overestimate the power of a chartreuse belly. Okay.
Yeah.
Every manufacturer that you have makes that. This is Eleggy Bone from Megabass. This is I don't even know what they call this color. Red. And then you'll have, you know, specialty colors for the body of water. We're not going to get into that. That takes too long. But that's important stuff, right?
Yeah. Dave shot on my hot steel. I hate that color.
The next important thing to me is depth.
But the thing with that belly 2 color is the chartreuse is just like David Schottlemeyer is saying, you know, an orange belly. You know, orange belly is huge.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, so your chartreuse belly and your orange belly. Just to touch on those colors. For me personally, Lucky Craft Pointer 100 Ghost Minnow, Lucky Craft Pointer 100 chartreuse shad, and I also like it in the 78s. And then in Megabass, you know, the Wagasagi with a little bit of purple in it, and the HT Ito Tennessee shad, which is the one George showed you there, are must-haves. Gotta have them. You gotta have them in your box. They're fish catching machines. And then everything else that we discussed that George discussed with the mirrors and the colors and stuff, you have to have that too. Because how many guys go up to New York and, you know, throw perch colors? up in, or even just northern tier stuff. The perch colors are really good. The gold perch that you see there that we had as a great dirt, stained water color. If you're dealing with stained water in a jerkbait bite, that's I mean, not dirt, not to that point, but just a little bit more stain in the water than normal.
Gotta have perch.
Gotta have perch, man. Absolutely.
You go north, you gotta have perch.
Yep. So some of them are flashy perch, some of them are see-through perch. Again, the same thing. Gotta have both. In our eyes. So start your collection, but get those 4 first, and then you can mess around with other things after that, and then start your collection with jerkbait fishing, because color wise, I've seen it. I've seen color, a big thing. Now, before we get away from that and go to depth, George, I want to talk about size of the bait a little bit. And this is something that I learned a hard lesson on, and that is a thick body, like a Pointer 100. If you want to hold one of them up, George. And do you have I don't know if you have that box with the little thin Lucky Crafts or anything thin.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there.
There's a 98 MR.
Yeah. So to see the difference between a Pointer 100, which is a thick bait, and then you have these thinner ones, that the body isn't so thick. It's just a little bit thinner. It's not so rounded. Post spawn, to me, and when you get into post spawn, that is the size. That really can make a big difference for you. Is where size comes in. The big bulky baits kind of start going away a little bit for a little while, and you can go to these. Yeah, see how skinny these are. These are baits that I put in my box because I got killed on those things one time, and I couldn't figure it out. I was throwing a 78 thinking I was doing the same thing, but it was the wrong diameter. The size was wrong. And those fish, I'm telling you, when it's post spawn and there's a lot of fry around, they want a skinny bait. So make sure you pay attention to the thickness of your bait also, especially in post spawn when you have a lot of fry around. They will not hit those big bulky baits. They want those thinner, skinnier, lower profile baits that more represent the flash of a little fry, and you will absolutely start smashing them again because of that. So that usually happens in mid-June and runs, to mid-July, and then the baits are growing up enough and the fish are feeding hard enough that you can start throwing bulky stuff again.
Yeah, well, if you're on a gizzard shad lake and you have a mild, stable summer, you're liable to get 3 spawns of gizzard shad, and what's the worst month of the year?
Yeah,
September.
Yeah.
That little tiny jerkbait,
telling you,
in September is money.
I even have another box that has the even smaller ones. These little 2.5-inch baits, maybe 3-inch baits are called. Little 3-inch jobbers for September. And they catch fish. When you're struggling, man, you can bust those out. You can catch fish on them. So that size, that's color. And the reasons for the different sizes and reasons for the colors, I think was covered very well. Now you want to talk about depth.
Yeah, and it depends where you live. But +1s.
We have a lot of those.
It gets you down a little bit deeper. Strike King 300 deep. You're just reaching that next level. World Diver, which we've been talking about a lot. Those baits, are going to get you down an extra 2 to 3 feet, realistically. 3 feet's a lot. They're going to get you a good average 2 feet more. And that is really important. For obvious reasons. If it's super cold water and your fish are deep, that's important. If it's live scope situation and you're looking at them and you're not getting near them, that's important. You want to stay above them, but you want to get near them. You don't necessarily want to go below them. You'd like to stay above suspended fish. You want to get near them. Fish that are relating to the bottom, if it's real cold water, you want to get down near them. You don't want to try to pull them up. So, you know, you need a couple of extra plusers in your box.
Yeah.
You know, and there's +2s, you know, there's a lot of specialty stuff here that is like very situational that, you know, we're not going to dwell on too much.
Well, even like those lipstone, those Team Dawa minnows we held up, George, they're like a lot shallower of a bait.
Well, and that's exactly what we were talking about with that Team Dawa. That's almost like the little rip stop.
Yeah,
rip stopper. That little rip stop. You know, you need a shallow running bait as much as you need a deeper running bait.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you primarily fish shallow water, there are times when, you know, you can shrug it off and say, oh, you know, I'll just go do something else. But there are times when that plays.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to, you know, to know, if you're a forward-facing sonar guy, you're going to learn the depths of your baits real quick. And that little line trick is amazing.
Yeah.
How you can go from a 10 in super cold water. I'll quite often go to an 8 to get that bait a little deeper. 10, a little less depth. 12, a little less depth. Mono, a lot less depth. So, you know, those are important things.
Yep.
And hook size. You know, there was a time when number 5 hooks weren't readily available, and I would replace a lot of my damaged 5s with 6s because I just didn't have the 5s, and it's okay. But man, I missed a lot of key fish, and it changed my bait. Those 5s are money. A lot of your baits are running a 5 hook. So, you know, keep a pack of 5 hooks.
Look at this freaking sorry thing.
I mean, that bait's caught fish, man.
Look at them hooks on that thing.
That bait's lived a tough life.
Oh my God.
You know, that bait's lived a tough life.
That is horrible. We got to get those changed out, George.
Oh, don't worry. Change we will.
That is horrible. I gotta show these. I gotta show this.
That bait's lived a very hard existence. There it focused. So, talk to me a little bit about some like off the wall, just kind of like out there off the wall jerkbait scenarios that you've seen.
Off the wall jerkbait scenarios?
Yeah, just weird stuff.
So,
or chime in with one.
Yeah. So for me, that with that cadence thing, I've seen stuff. 2 things. Number one, I've seen one that was so ultra slow, and it was me putting the whooping on George and Corbin. It was so ultra slow that the 12-pound fluorocarbon that I was getting deeper than those guys were, and I was catching fish that were laying on the bottom. And the world minnow, deep lip diver, world minnow was such a huge confidence thing for me, that I had to throw that. I had to get it down, and I had to dead stick it, and whether it was a slow sinking because of the line or whatever, but I could feel it hitting the bottom, and that was the only way we could catch them. And I was the only one catching them on jerkbaits. They could not catch them on jerkbaits, and I put the whoop on them really bad with that. And then the other one was I fished with a guy on a river that didn't have any. It was a really tough river. It was a super tough river out in West Virginia. It was called the Monongahela. And this guy worked a jerkbait like Kevin Van Dam, like he had some kind of convulsions. You know, he was just ripping this thing, but he was getting bites. You know, he was the only one getting bites on a jerkbait, and he was really ripping it like super fast. I don't know if you ever saw Kevin Van Dam doing it. He was just when he fishes it, he just his rod's moving, big movements. I mean, it's moving. It's fast, but it's really herky jerky with the bait. And he's the master of slackline jerking. You knew that?
Who's that?
Kevin Van Dam.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolute master.
He's the master of jerkbait.
And
fishing.
his rod can move 5 and 6 feet, and he's only moving that bait 2 or 3 inches. It's amazing how he just that rod's going like crazy, and that bait is just barely, just really snapping around. But a really fast retrieve. He really fished a jerkbait really fast. But this guy was hyper fast, and he was getting bit. It was in September, and it was that hard bite, and the jerkbait got the bites, and he beat me that day with that jerkbait. So two instances for me.
One, I already mentioned a couple. Like one was that cold front over top of grass on the Potomac River.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I was the only person on the river that day throwing a jerkbait.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure of that. That's how weird that was.
Yeah.
And then 2, I talked to you about putting 14-pound mono on a 110 to keep it shallow.
Yeah. That was cool.
3 was a time you and I were smallmouth fishing in the dead of winter in 38, 39 degree water. And your bait was sinking.
Right. It took on
cracked.
water.
So once we figured it out and these were all very big fish. Once we figured that out, it was like stacking strips of suspend dots on the baits.
Trying to get them to get down.
And that was part of that.
Yeah.
That effectiveness of tuning a bait to slow sink.
Yeah. For the situation. Super cold water,
these
fish
were
laying on the
super
bottom.
long pauses.
Yeah.
And what that bait was doing in that pause was just slowly sinking.
It was almost like we had them tuned to sink down and hit the bottom, and then you would feel it just kind of dragging,
just kind of bobbing there.
It would just kind of bob and just kind of, but it would be all the way on the bottom because you'd pull up leaves almost on every cast at the end of the cast because it was like if it stayed down too long, you would catch the leaves. But if you could get it just where it ticked along there, it was awesome.
So where a lot of this comes from is
it's cool.
Over time, building the jerkbait into a major confidence bait. Like I probably would say, I mean, basically in my world, and Mike and I fish together a lot. I mean, when we get the rods out of the rod box in the morning, 2 jerkbait rods come out.
Yeah.
At least. Because that jerkbait is going to be in play. And it doesn't matter where we fish. I mean, we fish the upper Chesapeake Bay a lot. Last summer, on the flats, some of the biggest fish we caught were on
jerkbait,
110s and re-ranges.
Yeah, re-ranges for sure.
Ripping that thing.
They really like that black, I forget what they call that, the black back with the blue side, the black
in the re-range.
Yeah. Black back with the blue, that bright blue.
The names are weird.
All their names are weird. Well, we called it in
Aurora Black.
Aurora Black, yeah.
But rip it down, right?
Yep.
And then rip it out of the grass.
All right.
And that produced really big fish. So I think one of the big talking points to get across is, the jerkbait is a year-round bait. It's a daily player. It's a daily player in your lineup.
Yeah.
Right?
No doubt.
For all these reasons highlighted
doubt.
Above.
No doubt about it.
I think that's a good, I think that's a pretty good overview. Getting into the juice a little bit.
Yeah. So there's one other aspect of jerkbait fishing, and we're going to touch on this a little bit. We're not going to get too far in depth with it, but it's the soft jerkbait. And in my case, we throw a couple different of them, but this Zoom Super Fluke right here is, in the jerkbait category. And for me, This is the opposite. You know, this is the one that does sink. This is the one that you jerk up and it sinks down. Whereas the jerk bait is you're jerking it down and it's kind of either staying or sinking down, you know, deeper. This one here, it works up and it comes down. But Zoom Super Fluke, you know, really good in the high 50s. You know, I really throw it more in the summertime, but you know, high 50s,
Killer spawn bait.
you know, around the spawn 58, you know, that kind of stuff. But I don't fish it much for that as much as I do as you know, personally in the summer. But I do really well with it. A couple of quick things with this. You don't need a lot of colors. My number one color, of course, is white pearl. You know, guys will chime in with 8 million different colors. This is probably my 90% or bait right here. And I fish mine Texas style, or Texas posed, which we talked about. And I like to use offset shank 3.0 wide gap hook with my fluke. And I think more, you know, this one here is one of those slackline jerkers. And guys were asking me about, or asking if we fish anything on spinning. These are what we fish on spinning. We fish the Zoom Super Fluke on a spinning rod right here, more so than anything else. There is guys that fish them on bait casters and do well with them. But I really like it on the spinning. George fishes it on probably 90% of the time on spinning.
Yeah, the only time I really go casting gear on that is when I'm more focused on largemouth and I like to fish a heavier line. I mean, I prefer to do that. Sometimes I'm lazy and I don't take the time to rig that rod, and that spinning rod's already rigged up with it and it's laying there, and I'll make it work. But one of the things that I found on the spinning rod with the fluke that is a game changer is braid to a leader.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
no doubt.
You know,
casting distance.
Yeah, and we ran into
and hook sets.
We ran into a good largemouth situation last year in post spawn summer largemouth fishing, where the hard jerk bait was working real well, and then as the tide got lower, that was taken out of play.
Yeah.
And the fluke played, but what was cool about the braid was that instant ability to put a 12-pound test fluorocarbon leader on and make that spinning rod into a more powerful weapon.
Sure. Absolutely.
Kind of doing what a casting rod would do.
Absolutely.
And the other thing, Mike, that's interesting, if you go back to this Bass Pro Tour at Murray,
mm-hmm.
is the power of that fluke's playing.
Oh yeah.
And they're fishing that fluke in a shad spawn, and they're doing some crazy retrieves. I watched real close to some of the rigging techniques, and I watched real close to some of the retrieves. And what was interesting was they would cast that thing out, give it 4 or 5 hard twitches, and then just burn it with the reel handle. And then twitch, try to get that reaction strike. That is when you want to remember, when you're fishing that style and when you're focusing on that fall, and particularly if you have a little more water depth, when you want to add that old school number 7 barrel swivel up the line.
Yeah, I got that right here.
That's when you want to remember that.
Yeah, the rig that we use in this, and I use it a couple different situations. I use it, and I like a number 5. I like a big one. I like a big sucker.
It depends. Yeah, it depends on the depth too.
Yeah,
because it goes down quick.
Yeah, I like a big one. I like a 5, and then when I go up to
you can get aggressive
deep water poundments in the fall where they're suspended in 20 foot of water. Then I go to a even bigger yet. The next one up, giant freaking things. That's the one I use for Carolina rigging, and
I fish at 7 mostly.
Yeah, the other time you want to put a barrel swivel on is if it's super windy.
Yeah, keep that belly out of your line.
It really helps cut that water, and you get more maximum cast out of maximum retrieve out of your cast.
Doesn't let the wind belly pull your bait as much.
Yeah, what happens to a belly in your line? It holds on top of the water.
Plus, it pulls the bait.
And then when you jerk, you pull the bait out of the water.
And as it's sitting there, the wind's pulling the bait, and I don't like that.
No,
I don't like that.
No, this thing will help you cut the line and get it down. So use a barrel swivel, fair size barrel swivel, and the way you rig that is you put it about 24 inches to 28 inches or so above the hook. So it's a leader, and then you tie it onto your rest of your line. But even at that, if I'm using braid to fluoro, it's my fluorocarbon leader is still 10 to 12 feet long. So this is still tied right into my fluorocarbon. It's not braid down to my swivel and then 28 inches to my offset hook. It's braid down to my fluorocarbon leader, which is 10 or 12 feet long, and then down at the end, I splice that in to the end of that. Try that swivel to, number one, get the bait a lot deeper. There's times in where you need to get it down deep, and that swivel will get it down deep. If it's a windy situation and you're just having a problem with the wind controlling a fluke, which because there's no weight with it, it's really hard. Put it on for that, and see what a swivel does for you. It's amazing what it'll do. And then again, I think it's very important that when you're jerking that thing to keep a lot of slack in your line so it gets really erratic and it falls and allows it to do its little fall dance, which is really cool and triggers a lot of strikes. So super flukes, very, 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 very big in the jerkbait world. They got super flukes, and the other one we like is the Perfect Plastics from Strike King. That's a really good one.
What I like about that is it's heavier.
Strike King plastic is super heavy.
So the Strike King caffeine shad is a great choice when you want that bait to sink quickly because it's heavier, or you want to burn it through the water. The other ones we fish with are the Big Bite jerk minnows, and what's cool about them is they bracket the size of the fluke. So they're 4-inch and they're 5-inch, and the fluke fits in the middle.
Yeah.
And they're a little heavier.
And so plus they got some cool colors.
You can really dial that whole fluke bite in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So why don't we put the finishing bow on this bait conversation? I
think we got it covered pretty good.
Now, what I would like to say is next week's show.
Yeah.
I got a cool title for it. April showers, how to adjust to high muddy water.
Nice one.
So we're gonna be in the mud next week.
Yep. Dave Hager, what size length of rod on the spinning rods? A 6.8 to a 7.1. I fish flukes on. I really like a 6.8 for fluke fishing because you can really, really work it well. But depending on type of cover and where I'm at, the 7.1 plays a big role in that. Absolutely. But that, like George said, the braid for fluorocarbon is huge. So I hope everybody had a good time tonight. X-Wrap. We got some great stuff on here. I love the conversations you guys have off to the side there. It's cool that you guys get in there and you chat with each other and talk with each other. And it seems like there's some friends being made on the chat side of things. Tackle Shop Live, which is cool because, one thing I noticed about fishermen and fisher ladies, we're a very unique bunch of people that we don't stir things up, and there's very, very few people that are real jerks. You're always going to have some, but there's very few in fishing, and they're fun to hang around with, and you make so many friends. It's unbelievable how many friends we make tournament fishing and fun fishing and hanging out fishing and talking fishing and hanging out in a tackle shop. How many friends you can make. Absolutely amazing. So
I got something to tell you.
What's that?
Before we sign off.
What?
Asian swamp eels.
Asian swamp eels.
And that is not the name of a band. They're taking over the Everglades.
Oh.
check this out. Crawfish populations in the Everglades and the sloughs, the slough crawfish populations in the Everglades are down 99%.
Good God. Because these eels?
I mean, there's like literally one crawfish missing a claw, 3 legs, blind in one eye, that's hiding underneath a rock.
Won't come out.
Waving a white flag.
Man.
Surrounded by Asian swamp eels. Flagfish, which is a little bait fish in the glades. Population down by 99%.
Good God, man. That's going to be, with between that and the pythons, there's not going to be any wildlife down there at all anymore.
Killifish. 91% gone.
Jeez. That'd make Joey upset.
And the thing is, not only do they have gills, but they have lungs.
Oh my God, they can crawl.
So they go in the mud. Right?
Yeah, that's those eels that those people are eating over there in Asia all the time. They eat all those eels. Catch them in the mud in those little holes.
I don't know.
Those things are bad.
I don't know the program there, but I got news for you.
Those things are bad.
They're expecting them to take over the whole Florida peninsula.
Yeah, those things are bad.
Possibly move to other states, and
things are horrible.
Keep an eye out. What I'd like to do is establish a battle royale. Remember when we talked about the 2-pound crawfish in Texas?
Yeah.
I'd like to take some of them down to the glades and let them
those big brown crawdads that we get around here.
No, I'm talking 2 pounds.
How big was that one that filled up the 5-gallon bucket that Dad had?
That wasn't no 2 pounds.
That was pretty damn big.
I
put that up against those eels.
I like to take those 2-pounders down there and turn them loose on those eels.
Hell yeah.
With like a steel.
Be like Godzilla versus
steel cage death match.
King Kong type of thing.
Well, that's real. That's your bombshell for tonight.
Love it.
All right, people.
Okay, guys. So thank you so much. Tune in next week, 7 o'clock, as always, on Thursday night for another great edition of Tackle Shop Live.
A sunny day, right there you took my breath away. Young and pretty, was it just a dream? The next day you called me up, you told me I'm your little buttercup. You came over and you fell into my arms. Well, I know what I feel. Please tell me your love is real. You make me smile when I think of you. If I am down or when I am blue, soaked in sweat, with chills running down my neck. I'm going crazy from just the thought of you. A long blonde hair and your beautiful smile. Your sense of humor makes it all worthwhile. Don't make me wait, it's not a funny game. You know just what I feel. Please tell me your love is real.